Hey everyone, what's up? It's Finite MPG. Today I've got something a little bit different for you guys. I'm going to be showing you a bit of a puzzle and I want to see what solutions you guys come up with. Make sure to leave them in the comments, but before we get to the puzzle, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate this last run that I had in the MOCS preliminary with this pretty medium looking black-white deck, and somehow I made it all the way to 6-2 with this pile. So very, very happy about that. Doom Foretold, actually a huge overperformer, but obviously this entire deck overperformed. And yeah, this means that I will be able to play in the MOCS playoff, which is a modern event, and I have a flight during that tournament. Well, okay, maybe I won't be able to play in the MOCS playoff, but it's still really cool to know that I made it there. So, moving on to this puzzle. This is another situation I was in, actually in the MOCS right before, the MOCS Open. And I want to see if you guys come up with some way to navigate this turn well. I think this is a really tough one. It's really easy to look at this board state, look at my opponent's big old 7-6 here, and even their 3-4 compared to my creatures, and think, well, there's really just no way we can win this game. But I'll let you guys take a look at this position. You can pause the video here if you want, and I will also show you the rest of my deck. So if there's anything that you want to top deck, you're gonna knock on top for a Stonecoil Serpent, and that's part of your game plan. I mean, whatever works. So if you want to try to solve it, pause the video here, and if not, I'm going to start going into what I think is the solution to this position. Alright, well, I've given you a few seconds to pause the video. Hopefully that was enough time. So now I think there are two main options you could go with to how to play this position. I think the first one is to try not to die. So we're at 8 life. Opponent's got a bunch of 2-powered creatures, also a 3-4 and a 7-6, and this 2-powered creature happens to have flying. So I think one line is something like use the stomp on this Mysterious Pathlighter to prevent from taking any extra damage in the air, and then just play the Bone Crusher Giant. And that uses up 6 mana, and then if they attack with this 2-Unveiled Treefolk, then the plan is something like double block with Bone Crusher Giant and Wildwood Tracker. And after that exchange is made, they're left with a 2-1, a 2-2, a 3-4, a 1-1, and we're left with a 4-4. So we have the biggest creature, but they easily beat us in terms of diversity. So one problem with that line, and of course this is a major problem with that line, is we essentially lose to a pump spell, right? So we are putting all our eggs in the basket of this double block working. If this double block on the Treefolk doesn't work, we are essentially dead. They're left with a 7-6. We get 2 for 1, lose most of our board. Our removal spell deals 5 damage, not 6, of course, so that doesn't work. So that is one option you could take. You could basically pray for like a Stonecoil Serpent off the top. I did make one mistake here in the fact that I didn't show you that Feasting Troll King is actually already in the graveyard, but fortunately it's not super relevant since we only have 3 green sources at this point anyway. But now on to what I think is the best solution, the best way to play this position. There is actually a way to try to go for lethal here, weird as that sounds. So the opponent's at 7. At this point, you have to start thinking about any possible damage that you can deal to them. So one way you can deal damage, of course, is the Stomp. You can just deal 2 damage directly to them. Another way is the Searing Barrage. And if we play the land, we have exactly enough mana for Searing Barrage with Adamant and the Stomp, which is pretty nice. So the Searing Barrage with Adamant, that deals 3 damage to them. But it also deals 5 damage to a creature, and we can actually try to use that in the form of pushing through damage here in conjunction with the trample on the Fierce Witchstalker. And so what I mean by that is, say I attack with this Fierce Witchstalker, and my opponent makes the quote-unquote obvious block of putting the 7-6 in front of it. So then before damage, what I'm able to do is use the Searing Barrage to deal 5 damage to the 2-Unveiled Treefolk, meaning only 1 damage is necessary to kill it. And then the Fierce Witch Stalker can assign 1 damage to the 2 Unveiled Treefolk, trample over for another 3 damage. So the idea here is you play the Searing Barrage, it deals 3 damage to the opponent, deals 5 damage to the Treefolk, assuming that's how they block, trample over for another 3, they're down to 1, and then just shock their face, easy peasy. Well, unfortunately, it's really not that easy. They do have 1 untapped land and this untapped Rosethorn Acolyte. Note that it's also not summoning sick, which means they can sack this golden egg and gain life. So then you're pretty much in this weird spot of when is the opponent going to sack the golden egg. So if we play land, we attack with the Fierce Witch Stalker, they block with the 2 Unveiled Treefolk, we go for the Adamant Searing Barrage. As long as they let the barrage resolve and then take the damage from the Witch Stalker down to 1, we're basically okay. As long as they try to crack this golden egg on end of turn after going down to 1 life from the barrage and the Witch Stalker, in response to them cracking this, that's when we shock them. And because we're shocking them in response, they're at 1 life trying to gain life up to 4. We shock them in response, putting them to -1. So they would actually lose the game if that happened. There is a risk though, and that risk is that if we attack, they block, and they actually crack this before damage happens, then there's never an opportunity where they're at 1 life, which means they could crack it right now, and that would bring them all the way up to 10 life, and then, of course, the 3 damage of trample here, plus the 3 damage here, plus 2, that is only 8 damage, not 10. Unfortunately, that wouldn't work. Now, the only question is, if we know that we have to make this attack, and there's this weird gambit with the golden egg, does this attack too? And so there is some consideration for leaving this back, because right now, if we make this attack and we're killing this 2 Unveiled Treefolk, we can leave back the Wildwood Tracker, and then we're not dead on board. We can say, Bone Crusher Giant, this thing, 2 for 1 ourselves, but get the 7/6 off the battlefield, and then, hey, we're not taking 8 damage, right? Like we can block here, and this is 2, 5, 6 damage. It's not ideal, but at least we don't die. So that's one option. Now for the option that I think is better. So I think that line of thinking is valid to some extent, but I think that if you are planning on using this 1/1 essentially to survive, that's not a game you're going to win. One of the reasons I showed you my deck is because, just in case you were wondering if there was any kind of sweeper, even something like a Sundering Stroke. I mean, Sundering Stroke, it is in the set, but I don't have it, so we're never doming them for 7 with that. We're never killing 3 of their creatures or something like that. So really, my point is we need this Wildwood Tracker to attack in order to make sure that they don't put extra toughness in front of the Witch Stalker. Because if they block with the Treefolk, that's all well and good. We have our plan of hoping that they crack the egg end of turn, and we can shock them in response to that. But if they double block it, say with this 3/4 and the 7/6, suddenly we don't have enough damage to actually kill them. So the reason to attack with the Wildwood Tracker is to force another quote-unquote obvious block where they put this Rosethorn Acolyte onto the Wildwood Tracker. And then because they're not double blocking, that could potentially put them in range of dying to this. So let me just go through the math once again for you guys. If they do single block here, then we get 2 Searing Barrage. So putting this effectively to 1 toughness, then trampling over for 3 damage, not to mention the 3 damage directly to them from the Searing Barrage for a total of 6 damage. And then assuming they try to crack this golden egg at end of turn, then in response to that egg crack, we can shoot them from 1 life to -1, and they lose the game. So that is the puzzle. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Let me know if you would have navigated this position similarly. Let me know whether or not you want to see more puzzles, that kind of thing in the future. I will have some Vintage Cube very shortly for you guys. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.